Thank you. Thank you, Stefan, and welcome everyone to the keynote, today's keynote. My name is Florian Rottberg. I'm from Vidis Consulting. I'm based here in Munich, Germany. You can see on my left-hand side, it's already dark over here. So it's getting winter and yeah. So for the next 45 minutes, I want to give you some insights about the digital signage industry, latest trends, and also some of the really cool projects everyone has been aiming for and looking for and to compare with. So just briefly who we are. In Vidis Consulting, founded the company 20 years ago. We're based in Munich, Germany. We have a joint venture together with the ISE team. I'm sure you're all aware of ISE, and we are sitting here in the same office with Mike Blackman, the whole team. So we are currently very, very busy in preparing ISE, which is coming up in just a few weeks, just right in the new year. So some of you maybe have heard that we took over 69. I'm sure you're all aware of it, 69.net, which is a digital signage platform, especially focusing on North America. Since Dave retired in summer, we are now the guys doing that. So we have an editorial team and just covering everything digital signage on a weekdaily basis. We do a lot of events. We are busy with lots of conferences at ISE, but also separate events at our own Digital Signage Summit, which always takes place in May, and all the Infocom events in the US and around the world. We're always busy. We're always responsible there for the digital signage content for conferences, panel discussions, and everything. And last but not least, if you want to learn more, please go to invidis.com and download our free research. We publish the annual yearbooks, which is a little bit like the Bible of the industry. More than 100,000 people download them every year, where we explain, latest trends and everything. So if you want more of us, please feel free to download them. So that's me, and as Steph already said, my contacts are already down there. So you find me also on LinkedIn, obviously, and invidis.com. Good. Let's get started. And the main topic of this year is managed signage. Many of you are aware that the industry has come a long way. In the 20 years ago, it was more about hang and bang. Integrators resold a few screens and the software, and then installed everything and forgot about it, invoiced it, and that was basically it. Then it moved to becoming a solution provider. So it's not all just hardware, but it's really looking at the whole thing. And now we're moving to a more managed service part of the industry. So the integrator is becoming a managed service provider, taking control about the whole hardware, about the life cycle, providing end-to-end services. And I will show you some slides later in regards to that. So just some cool stuff. I just returned from Mexico, and before I was in Mexico, I was in Korea. So this is really cool stuff. And in Korea, one of the biggest LED screens out there, digital out-of-home screen, it's on the facade of a big department store, and just shows you how cool digital signage can be in public spaces if you do it right, if you have the right agency to create the right cool immersive content. And that's something that's much more than just having a digital sign or it's an airport also. This is really exciting, that creates emotions. And the greatest thing is always when you see people in front of it, taking a photo of themselves. So that really shows, this is one of these special Instagrammable moments. And this one, it's a Samsung one, but obviously there are many other brands, LED in Seoul. And that's another one I went to in Beijing. You sure all know Nike stores, but here it really shows, how you integrate digital signage into the facade. So you have really cool content. You have a lot of, text messages on top of it, and you really have the red tunnel, which draws you to the entrance, and it's changing all the time from English to Chinese, and it's really, creating this, this place where people want to go and get inside. Which, as you all know, is the most challenging part for any stationary retailer. Is really how do you convert people who are passing by to get into your store? How do you get them, engaged and excited to look at your latest product? That's inside the store. A pretty plain vanilla LED, but it's much more than a plain vanilla LED because it's just cool signage. I mean, you see the graphics there. You see how, this is really, if you do it right, no movement, just a photo, but it excites you and it creates a great story, and you can even see the product featured there. So really, really well done, Nike, in this case. Another tool just to show you, digital signage doesn't always have to be a big video wall. Sometimes your budgets are limited. And this is at the FIFA Museum in Zurich. You all know FIFA World Cup will take place next summer in the US, Mexico and Canada. But this is a FIFA Museum in Zurich at the head office. And this is just a staircase, right? And you only have LED between the stairs. So it's pretty simple stuff. But in combination with the reflection of the tiles, you create something which is totally immersive. We are a huge fan of combining digital signage, LED, LCD, and mirrors. Because it saves you a lot of money, but it can create great spaces. And this is a great example. So the next time a customer asks you about something special, don't just try to sell them, the largest LED in the world. Or if you're an end customer, challenge your integrators, ask them, what can you do for me? What can you do specific, unique? How can we create something? How can we draw people to certain areas of the store or in our showroom? Do it like this one, really well done from FIFA in Zurich. Another one, this is just in our home airport here in Munich, Germany. This is a plain vanilla LED wall, but it's only 2/3 of the area is LED. The rest is just milk glass. They have some LED backlight LED, and it extends basically the space. So it's really saving 1/3 of the cost. Not putting LED everywhere and keeping with the 16:9 ratio, which also makes it much easier really to use existing campaigns and existing content, and just put a nice frame around it. I'm sure it looks a little bit like Philips Ambilight, which they introduced 20 years ago. Same technology, but it has a great effect. And yes, it saves you also budget in times like this. That's not unimportant. Another one, this is Sixt. Many of you know Sixt car rental, and you know how boring car rental stations are at most airports. This is a round one, so it is really how you should do, storytelling at the point of sale, because you have, a round silo in the middle, with the LED around it, shows all the available cars, has some cool slogans on top. And once you come closer and you choose a car, it shows your car, and also, it helps you to upsell, or helps Sixt to upsell. So it shows you it's nice weather today. Don't you want to have a convertible? It just costs you a few bucks more and get it. So it's really interactive. It's something very immersive. And it's just done very, very nice, very cool. And again, people take photos of it, so it shows, it's just more than plain signage. Another one, this I took at Tel Aviv. Yes, I went to Israel a few months ago in between the rockets. That good news is that currently everything seems to be peaceful there. So this is digital out of home. Yes, we have seen all digital out of home advertisement on large digital screens, but this is digital out of home with added value because it shows you the time. And the cool thing is, this was filmed with real swimmers. And it shows you a little bit, that this content is already a few years old, because today you would do that, with AI within a few minutes. At that time, it took them 2 weeks to produce that, and with $1 million+ US cost, because they had to film everything at that time. And there's a make-off video also on YouTube. It's just really cool, but it shows how fast our industry has moved in the past 5 years, from filming everything broadcast with really expensive content costs to AI. We just press a button, do a good prompt, and then basically you have it there. So it really, but it's fascinating. It just works. People stand there, and it's just more than just telling the time. It's storytelling, powered and by local insurance in Israel. That's also great because it shows how digital signage and data works together. As you all know, plain signage is something we have seen for many, many years, but the real relevance comes if you have the right message at the right time at the right place. And here it shows something. Here it shows, the Nike app in Singapore, and you see, the data of, the people who use the app on this day. So you can really see, how people with the Nike app, what kind of track they ran this morning, how fast they did, and it really builds up this community and really shows that the Nike store in Singapore is more than just a store. It really shows you, it's part of the whole community, and that's done really, really nicely. And we absolutely believe that the more data you can integrate, the better, the more relevant the message comes. And let's face it, that's what consumers also expect nowadays, because everyone is spoiled from their mobile phone, which is the most accurate, the most personal device. Digital signage, digital out of home is not personal, it's one to many. But still, you want the context around it. So you don't want something, which doesn't relate to the location and the time you're currently in. So very well done, really, visualizing data. It's a really good job by Nike there. This is in London. This is just damn cool. It's in the basement of a department store, and you can rent it there, for private events and everything, and just shows the power. It's a huge space. I went there when nothing was, no event was there, and everything is LED, and it just shows, it's just that you dive into a different world, and for 45 minutes, an hour or so, you just experience it, with great sound and everything. So this is more like a museum, but it shows, the right content at the right time, the right space. It's just fantastic storytelling. By the way, I took all the photos myself. So if you have any interest or so, let me know. This is in India. You wouldn't expect it in India, and we spend a lot of time in India. We have Infocom India there, and I've just been there 2 weeks ago. And this is, this is like a fast fashion store, something like Zara or so you're aware of. And this is Azorte, in the biggest one in India. And what they do, it's really cool. They have this big entranceway with a lot of LED mirrors on the top. Again, as I mentioned before, just to make it as cheap as possible, but also to see it from far away, because they're at a 45-degree angle. So you see the LED content already from far away, and then you really walk inside and you really know which store you're in. Because the biggest problem with department stores is it always looks like, right? I mean, the whole width of of the store is usually an entrance, and there's no shopping window, nothing. So it's often really difficult to know which kind of brand you're in. But here it's the experience already entering the store, great storytelling. Great job by the guys on Reliance Retail. And again, some digital out of home in India. These are some LEDs, some digital out of home, which are pillar wraps, and they they turn in different directions, which really gets the attention of the consumer, right, when he's in the shopping mall, because they're not all going the same direction. They're going against each other, and it really, you pay attention to it, and it's a great storytelling. It's also quite easy because it's not that big, so you can really reuse existing Instagram content. So that's also something we really, really want, help our customers, not that, create a great digital experience where you don't have any budget left, to create the content. The digital signage is always just a platform. The good story comes, with the content. So make sure whatever you do, that ideally you can reuse existing content or use some tools or a good agency, but make it as scalable as possible. Because if you have to touch every single one, that's the challenge. So, but it's a really nice example of that. And yes, as great as our technology is, it needs maintenance, needs service. This was at 8 o'clock in the morning, Miami. The poor guy was already sweating, as you can see, fixing all these things. These are the public digital out of home totems by EK, based on Dynascan, high brightness screens. And yes, you need to maintain them, because digital signage, digital out of home, has become business critical. That means it needs to run. It's not nice to have anymore. It's business critical. Because the network operator, the media owner, they're losing money if the screens are not running. So make sure you choose the right hardware, robust media player, robust remote device management to make sure it just works. And this was just plain maintenance, but it also needs to be done on a regular basis. And last but not least, this is in Miami Beach. I'm sure you have seen that, the old cinema there. That's where H&M, placed their biggest screen there. And it just looks great, because it's not something which was put at the end, in the room, but which is part of the architecture, and the whole lighting, everything coordinates with the content on the screen. It's just done really, really nicely. Good. And then we always have to show the nice and the ugly, unfortunately. This is one of the challenges we have in our industry, not choosing the right hardware, or in this case, it's not so much a hardware, but it's really not having any canopies. And drive-through, they love all the screens, and it's one of the most popular use cases we have. But the problem is, if you have sun shining on it, for 4 or 5 hours every day, this is just what happens. It gets up to 80 degrees Celsius, between the window, the glass, and the screen, and this is just too much. Yes, you should put in proper ventilation and everything, but the heat dissipation, needs to be managed very, very good. And in certain places where you have too much direct daylight, everything, there's no way the technology can really fix it. Yes, there is a way. There are 2 or 3 vendors, but it's very expensive. It uses crazy amount of electricity. So in cases like this, put up a canopy, which provides shade, and then the screen should be okay. Good. Someone is asking, just seeing at the chat here, what I think about e-paper installations. To be honest, guys, I love e-paper. Unfortunately, it's still too expensive. But I'm a big fan of e-paper. We absolutely believe it's the future, but it's more or less complementing existing technologies, not replacing them. So we definitely see, printed poster being replaced by e-paper. I've been to the factory and I saw the largest ones are now 86-inch, so they're big enough. The colors are still not good enough, but that will improve in the next couple of months and years. So we definitely see e-paper as a great technology because it's the best you can have in direct sunlight and outdoor applications. Needs no heating, doesn't use any electricity. We don't change the content, but it's limited. You currently cannot show any video. But there are more enough use cases where static text is fine enough. And let's face it, also here it's a QSR, it's a drive-through. I know they use some videos and they love it, but I'm 100% sure we will see e-paper displays in the future also at the drive-through. So I'm a big fan of e-paper. Currently, there's only one big vendor, so everyone buys from e-ink, which is a great product. But we still wait, until demand picks up and then prices get lower, because currently it's still a bit too expensive. And as Gary said, it's not about just signage, it's about experiences. And this is really important for retailers. They don't want to provide a point of sale. They want to provide something which is more. This is not a store, it's an experience. Come in and find out. Good. And this is just my last photo before I dive into some more German slides, which give you some more details about the market. This is about, if you have the right message, it's the right place. It doesn't always need to be digital, right? I mean, it's a great story here. Plain vanilla, cream cheese. Go for it. It just works. So we are also a fan of saying sometimes, it doesn't need to be digital. Not everything needs to be digital. Sometimes, a plain written sign, is better than something digital. So what are the main topics I want to talk about? Best practice. I showed you already some. We want to go in managed services and remote management, simplifying complexity, AI in action, as you all know, from pilot to real world impact. That's a big topic currently. And then we also have to talk about cybersecurity and reliability. Why resilience matters. Good. Let's dive into the slides. So you're all aware of this. Our market is moving from LCD towards LED. So we'll reach that point in the near future where revenue-wise, there will be, LED will be the most important technology. But if you just look at the number of touch points, LCD for a long time will remain the predominant technology. We strongly believe LCD has for a long future has a place in our market, but LED becomes cheaper, more higher resolution, everything. So that's definitely something where we see more and more coming. But yes, we have this shift from LCD to LED, no question about it. Good. We briefly have to talk about merger and acquisitions. Our industry is really consolidating, and this is only good news. I can tell you that because until now, most of the players were just too small in our industry. Beyond AVI, SPL, and diversified, we have dozens and hundreds of players, which are just a few million, and these are great guys. They're very passionate, but to be honest, they're too small, and especially for the larger customers, they also want larger, suppliers. And so we definitely see this, this trend towards M&A, and there's a lot of stuff happening, and we believe more and more will coming. So consolidation is picking up in the industry as the industry is moving from hang and bang to managed services, because managed services needs a stronger balance sheet, and that's where you need bigger companies for. And also regional solutions are replaced with global solutions. The times are over where global brands had different solutions and different solution providers in each market. Now they really want to look at a global solution which is fully connected. And we see more IT integrators coming to the industry. Yes, guys, that's new competition to the market. And these guys are very good at scaling and delivering services. They're not good at creating concepts because it's something where you need unique digital signage solution, but they're very good at the scalable stuff, and they're really interested in getting a bigger share of the market. We see hardware vendors expanding downstream. So typically, Samsung and these guys, not only provide hardware, but they also start providing remote device management tools, CMS services, all of that stuff. We have to live with it. That's what it is. And you either work with them or do other things. But that's where we see big trends also driving M&A. And last but not least, lifecycle management, sustainability. I know sustainability is not so big in North America, but believe me, guys, it will also be relevant in North America in a few years. And because regulations are already really, really tough around here in Europe. So you have to buy carbon footprints and carbon credits in the future. And whoever buys something now needs to make sure it's as sustainable as possible. But most important, 80% of the carbon footprint is generated during operations. So it's not so much one kind of device you buy, but how you operate them. And that means turning off at night, for example, if no customers there. So that's one of the things which are really relevant. So these are just some of the names. Most of them, AVI, SPL, 400 million, just XTG Group, which is their experience group. Ricoh, which has become shifted from selling copy machines and printers to become the largest Pro AV integrator with 700 million just Pro AV revenue in the US. We have diversified. We have AVI Systems, which are now branding as Forte. We have Yorktel, who just acquired Kinley, which is similar to AVI SPL, a company in Europe. So we see more and more of these bigger guys emerging, and that's good news, as I mentioned before. And some guys in Europe too, Trison, which is a Spanish integrator. We see the Vertiseit Group buying lots of software companies, and Navori and Signage Life, and there's much, much more to come in the next couple of months. So talking about managed services and remote device management. I'm sure most of you heard about the great blackout we had a few months ago in Spain, where basically the whole market went black. And that's what it looked like on their dashboard in the NOC, in their network operation centers. Regular operations, everything was green. And then the moment, the blackout came, a whole country turned red. And that's probably one of the biggest challenges in our industry, that most of the endpoints are not managed actively. So they're just waiting that some, lights go off and to fix something. But we really, really tell our clients, you have to manage them actively. Make sure someone's watching them. And AI makes life so much easier. You can have some AI agents who just watch, and monitor the health status of your devices. And if there's something, off norm, you can fix them before they fail. If there's a blackout, obviously there's not much you can do, but it helps you to understand where the problems are and to reboot it very, very fast. And as I mentioned before, our industry is really moving from hang and bang to trusted service providers, and in the future to MSP, to managed service providers. And Emily, you have to help me now, because I think we have one more to go. So this is managed services. And what is managed services? Well, if you're in a digital signage industry, if you're looking for something, that's definitely something you had in the past. On the left-hand side, service and maintenance was something you did retroactively. But now, as we move to managed signage, it means the integrator is taking more control, is taking ownership of the hardware, for example, and ideally of the whole network, including content production. And what does it mean? It means that maybe you replace screens every 3 years. And the integrator replaces the screen after 3 years and then refurbishes and sells it to the next customer, or lease or finance or leasing it to the next customer. And this is something where we see a lot of stuff there. Good. Coming to the next one, AI. We said AI is very, very important. And we believe AI first is not just an opportunity, it's a necessity to survive. And I'm sure you all know that our industry has changed a lot. And when we started with the digital world, it was online first. Then it became mobile first, then cloud first, and now the latest strategy is AI first. So to start with AI was first and then move to the next one. Unfortunately, our industry is not as good as many people believe. So only 2/3 of the vendors in our industry use AI in a managed process. I'm sure 100% use it privately and don't asking their boss, right? But what's really important, that the organizations and everyone in the industry has processes, has roles defined, who is allowed to use what, especially what tools can be used. Because if you just use the public tools, all the information you put in there will be shared with many other guys. And some of the mishaps which happened. So it's really important that each organization has strict AI rules. You need it. It helps a lot, but make sure it's in a controlled environment. So our industry still needs to work on that. Where is AI currently used the most? Well, for content generation and for software coding, where it's really, really good. Good. And we do that every 6 months. You see there's certain improvement. So 3%, we have more people in our industry who have now processes established, to use AI, but there's still a long way to go until AI is a standard. And these are the most popular ones. You see not much has changed, but this is what AI is used for, and everyone is really happy with that. And this is a 3% things I changed. So coming to the next one now, Emily, I think we need to change. And this is really, really important. And this is something, maybe if you're based in North America, which is not so familiar to you, but our world has changed since this year. There's not only a new guy in the White House, but there's also new rules in regards to AI. So our world, we're moving to a bipolar AI world. There's a US-centric world, with Western countries like us in Europe and Japan and some other places where, they have all access to all the AI tools. And then there's a Chinese world, which is totally different. So when we talk now to Chinese vendors, and many of them most of the hardware is anyway made in China, but also many of the vendors are from China. And they now need to develop, because AI plays such a relevant part in all our tools nowadays, they now need to develop for 2 different worlds, for 2 different large language models, and that adds a lot of complexity. So you're either in the Western camp or you're in the Chinese camp, and the poor guys in the middle, we call them caught in the middle, they have to decide. Either you're in the West or you go with the Chinese. And that's where we currently are. And for many vendors and many end customers in the Middle East, in Brazil, in India, that's very challenging, because for decades they lived between both worlds. Fair enough, there was a big market for them. But now with AI, you need to decide. Either you go West or you go China, but there's not way, you cannot do both. And that's where we see similar stuff already in broadcasting, and now that comes also to AI. Good. So what are the typical use cases? Gen AI, content generation, content conversion, content translation plays a big role and works quite well. Agentic AI, We see device auto healing, network management, and content sourcing, and analytic AI, device monitoring, audience customer analytics, and interactive experiences. Just to give you some ideas, there are millions and more applications, but just help you a little bit to see, how AI can be used in digital signage. Good. And how does it work? Well, it works, for example, self-checkout already, and it works quite good. So these, AI-powered scales, they recognize already 95% of produce and fruits. Well, better than me, I guess. I don't know all of them, so AI is pretty good in that. And it also, recognized 80% of age-restricted purchases. Because I know in the US that's very strict. In Europe, that's a little bit more liberal. So, if the checkout system, sees that you're older than 21, or in Europe even 16, you can buy beer with 16 here in Germany. So if the system recognizes you, then you're allowed to buy it, and you don't need to ring, someone at the counter to get it or so. So you see, AI is doing already great things. And it also, the next stage is now really to using AI for checkout manipulation, because it's very simple to hide something, to scan it, and so the camera doesn't see it, and to try to save some money on that. So AI really works in practice already quite well. Another AI use case, this is KFC in Taiwan. They have huge problems. They don't find enough people who want to work there. No burger flippers, or in this case, chicken fryer. So they really need to work on finding digital. So they have now these digital AI-powered humans. You can communicate with them in a natural language, order whatever you want. They give recommendations, and it's very, very popular. And this virtual person, the great thing about it is, this is built out of 500 real photos of KFC employees in Taiwan. So there's a huge, acceptance of that, because often, human employees say, oh, it's digital, we don't like that, but this is part of it. So this digital human was built out of photos of real people, and that works very well. They now roll it out across Taiwan, across the region, and also in drive-thru. So that works really, really well. So that's really cool. Good. Then AI-based digital out-of-home tools. What is it currently used for? Well, creative analyzer, for example. So if advertisers really want to know, can I use that campaign? Is it compliant with all the regulations? They have now AI tools which really help you to check if the content is compliant with everything, and that works very well. Content approval, and also campaign planning and optimization. So these are things which are happening with AI. Pretty cool stuff, and we love it. We love it, and it works very well. So what is the future of AI? Well, we started all with analytic AI. It went over to generative AI. Currently, everyone talks about agentic AI. And guess what, guys? The next one is physical AI. It still takes a few years, and we still need to look, what the real use cases are for digital signage. But I'm sure guys will find something and do that. Good. So, and it will also help, that the next generation of staff, of people joining your organization, either on the supply or demand side, these people will be AI natives, right? I mean, we had digital native, we had mobile native, and the next generation will be AI natives. I have small children. For them, it's already standard, right? They love it. They do that. And for them, it's the most normal thing. They don't use Google at all. For them, everything is, ChatGPT. That's their whole world. That's how they work. And always need to teach them, that there's life beyond ChatGPT. But this is really what the AI natives are doing. And so we see much, much more coming in this regard. So there's one thing, good and bad news at the same time. AI is not a plug and play solution. So you just cannot hook it via API and just works. You need to adapt it. You need to customize it. That's good and bad, but it really shows that every customer, every project needs their own AI solution, and you need experts to make it work. So at the end of the day, you need to decide with AI: are you a taker? Are you a shaper? Or are you a maker? Well, a taker is just something you can take whatever is there, right? Just use ChatGPT or so, that's cool. But as a digital signage integrator, that's not what you want. A maker, well, to be honest, guys, very honest, most of you are way too small. To be a maker, to build your own large language model, to do everything, you need a lot of budgets. That's most of you cannot do that. So be a shaper. Use something, which is there. Feed it with your data, add value to it, add value to your customers. If you're an end user, add value through what you have, and then do that. And we have seen many, many best practices already. So if you have an open desk policy, AI can help you to cluster the employees from one department, at one space. And then it shows the right content just above the desk, for the marketing people sitting there, marketing content and everything. So this is really, the more data they have, the more you can feed the beast, the more exact, the better the experience is. Good. And last but not least, I would briefly want to talk about cybersecurity because we need to talk about security, guys. I'm sure you've all seen that, you've seen these, hacked screens all over the world. Some of them are prettier, most of them are not pretty, but it really shows, where we are. This was a big CrowdStrike disaster a year ago where the whole world was filled with blue screens. And the good thing is this is over and fixed. But we do have some security incidents. There's phishing, there's hacking, and there's also lots of faulty updates like we had with CrowdStrike. But what's really important, and that's the biggest challenge for digital signage in general, being on the demand or supply side, you cannot secure what you cannot see. That's really, really important. And the vast majority of players and end users are not aware what's happening. So they have no agents running, they have not really full control, they have no cybersecurity policies or not sufficient one. So digital signage is as relevant as all the other digital platforms your organization is using. Make sure it's completely integrated in your processes. Make sure someone is watching it, someone's making sure that if something happens, something can be fixed immediately. Because too often screens are hacked and nobody really sees it. And guys, it costs a lot of time. A typical security intrusion takes 200 days until it's detected. So for 200 days, the guys can play around, they can get all the data, they can do whatever they want, and then only the organization, finds it out, and then it takes another 70 days to fix it. So we're talking almost 3/4 of a year, right? That's on average. With digital signage, often it's a little bit less, because you see it, usually, the hackers love to put something on the screen, so that's more obvious. But also there, sometimes take days until someone finds out. So make sure all your systems are secure and certified, which we believe it's very, very important. So complexity is the enemy of the security. So make sure, to have a simple system, make sure you're aware of what's connected, where the data comes from, and this is really, really relevant. Good. And the average cost of a breach is $4.9 million US. That's a lot, huh? And to be honest, we have a lot of clients, we advisors here who paid a lot of money, not only to get their data back, but also to all security and also lost revenue. The biggest thing, I'm not sure if you heard about it, was JLR, Jaguar Land Rover, the big British car manufacturer. They had a security breach. It cost them $2 billion already. Yes, you're not an auto manufacturer, I'm aware of that, but it costs them already $2 billion. And experts expect it's probably double when they're finished. So we're talking about billions and billions of lost sales and also cost, to security insurances and everything. And guess what? They didn't have insurance, so that's not good. So make sure, that everything, is safe and secure, and make sure, really to train your employees, to train awareness, have this awareness, this mindset in your organization that security plays a big role. Good. And this is already, we have a few minutes left. And guys, if you have any questions or so, I'm happy to answer you. Anything on the chat? How do you convince signage customers the importance of not allowing content to become stale? These deployment photos are great, but the signage losses impact if the content is the same over and over again. That's really, really important. Greg, thank you for your question. That's really important. And it really depends how often, customer typically comes to your screen and sees the screen. That's really relevant. So, if you're in a museum, if you're something very unique, it's okay. You can have video content, which you only update once a year or so. That's good enough because people not coming that often. But if you're at a railway station where commuters come by every single day, or even worse in an office, you need to make sure you update your content. Otherwise, people will be blind. They don't see it. It's the same, with advertisement banners on the website. If you always show the same banners, nobody clicks them anymore. People don't click banners anyway, but even if you show them too often, that's not going to work. So make sure you update them. And we always tell our clients, don't just look at the CapEx, don't just look, at the software and service costs, but make sure you have enough budget really to feed the beast with content. And yes, you don't always have to generate just solely for signage, right? Make sure it's part of your whole content production process, what you do for social media, what you do for your website, whatever, one output should always be signage. And make sure the resolution is as standardized as possible. Because if you have different resolutions with screens, it's not a problem. You have 69:9 to 16, that's pretty simple. But once you go, into LED, it's very tempting to do these crazy resolutions, but make sure, to stick with some simple stuff, which is highly standardized. So that's the only recommendation I can give you. And secondly, make sure if you're retail, for example, you have screens across many, many locations, that the local store manager has some ownership. because sometimes they place, some merchandise in front of the screen, or if the screen goes black, they don't report it to head office because it's not from us, it's from head office. So make sure that the local store manager has some influence, give him 5% of the airtime, so he can place some pre-approved messages there, and make sure, he can personalize a little bit so the whole organization feels like it's part of their organization. Good. Do we have anything else? Any other questions? No questions. Steph, do you have any?
I was just wondering, oh, look, here I am. So, Florian, what do you think, in your opinion, in the next 5 years, other than, just kind of like how much we will start to rely on AI, and once we kind of start seeing where it does have value in content creation and helping those managed services, what do you think is going to be the next biggest trend in signage?
I think it's not technology, because AI changes everything, it's disrupting everything. I think it will be more, that digital signage will become even more business critical. So even in today's world, we have airports who have to close when the signage system doesn't work. We have QSR restaurants, they're closing the restaurants, the screens are not working. So signage is not nice to have anymore, but it's essential part of their business processes, of their day-to-day operations. And the more business critical it becomes, the more important it is, or the more customers are willing to spend on services and everything. So I think the business criticalness of the industry becomes more important. That also, it's just good news. It's not the technology, it's a mindset of what it delivers to your customer journey or to your operations.
Do you think that there will be a future in which it's not so siloed from content, and because I think that we just, when someone comes and wants to put this technology in, they don't think about it as being a part of whatever installation they're trying to do. They see AV as being so different. Do you see signage becoming more and more like part of a project from the start, from the jump?
Yeah, we see that in certain vertical markets. We see that already. So QSR, for example, it's essential. They don't create something especially for digital signage. It's part of the whole content creation process, and it's relevant there. So also in corporate communications, we see, the content's already there, in intranet, on mobile and everything. So it's just a different channel, right? A different outplay. So we see it there. Some other markets, some smaller, mom and pop shops, that's a long way, right? The only thing you can do there is just connect it somehow to social media, because they know they feed their Instagram channel every day, right? So let's make sure that we also use the existing content, and bring it somehow on the screens. Basically every CMS has a little template to make it work, and that's probably the smartest way. And maybe also use some standard content which you can subscribe. Companies like ScreenFeed also, enable you to use some, licensed news and weather and whatever they're relevant also. But make sure you feed the beast, and it's always relevant and always fresh. That's very important.
What do you think is going to be the biggest trend that we're going to see at ISE?
AI, unfortunately. And to be honest, there were a lot of AI announcements at last IC.
Yeah.
But was still pretty, it wasn't really anything cool there. So we expect, more and more stuff coming now where AI is really fully integrated and really adds value. It's not just fun, it's something, to play around with, but really adds value. So we believe AI will be one of the most important things. We will see more micro LED, smaller pixel pitches. To be honest, I feel good enough for that. Security will become more important. And so these are things we see. And we call it, next signage, something, the next generation, the next mindset of signage. That's hopefully that's what, will be the start at IC.
Absolutely. Well, Florian, thank you so much. Last question. You mentioned this at the beginning, but I'm going to have you repeat it to everyone here. Where can they find you on the internet?
Well, invidis.com, 69.net, and at IC, LinkedIn, Florian Rothberg, Invidis Consulting. You will find me there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was a fantastic keynote. Really appreciate you being part of Launch Week.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me. Have a great day. Thank you.